The Objective News Network, welcome to the next in our series of reviews of the qualifications of the candidates running for President of the United States in the 2024 election. So far, we've looked at Ron DeSantis, the conservative Republican governor of the state of Florida, and Dean Phillips, the moderate Democratic representatives for the 3rd Congressional District sitting in the U.S. House of Representatives. This time, we are going to take a look at Vivek Ramaswamy, a conservative Republican candidate for President of the United States. Just as we did the last time, we will use authentication to look across 18 areas of interest to American voters as they go to the voting booth in 2024 to elect their next president of the United States. So, let's start off with the age of Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy was born on August 9, 1985. Authentication found no evidence that Mr. Ramaswamy suffers from any debilitating sickness, disease, or mental impairment that would stand in the way of a successful two-term presidency. Vivek Ramaswamy is a practicing Hindu. He insists his Hindu faith won't be a hurdle for his campaign. Quote, "I'm a person of faith. Evangelical Christians across the state are also people of faith," close quote, he told NBC News in July. Quote, "We found commonality in our need to defend religious liberty, to stand for faith and patriotism, and stand unapologetically for the fact that we are one nation under God," close quote. Vivek Ramaswamy was born in Cincinnati to Indian immigrant parents. He graduated from Harvard College with a bachelor's degree in biology and later earned a Juris Doctorate degree from the Yale Law School. Ramaswamy founded his own biotech company, Revant Sciences. In 2023, Forbes magazine estimated that Ramaswamy's personal wealth, at $630 million. Vivek Ramaswamy is currently involved in campaigning for President of the United States. He is using his own personal wealth to fund much of his own campaign. At his campaign website, he identifies 10 broad principles of political truth for America, namely, God is real. There are 2 genders. Human flourishing requires the use of fossil fuels. Any form of reverse racism is, in fact, racism. An open border is no border at all. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind. Capitalism lifts people up from poverty. There are 3 branches of the U.S. government, not 4. The U.S. Constitution is the strongest guarantor of our freedoms. Authentication found a dearth of data revealing any extensive experience by Mr. Ramaswamy in national security matters. He has not served in the military. There is, however, evidence that he has developed a broad spectrum of strategic policy statements. They are, however, mostly devoid of deep research and analysis, with specific plans for accomplishing their implementation should he become the President of the United States in 2024. We did, however, find a statement of proposed and significant defense spending increases that appear to focus on increasing U.S. military capability to either deter or militarily engage China. The plan does not provide specific details as to exactly what the new monies should specifically be spent on to enhance U.S. military prowess as it relates to China. Another example of this is his national security China policy that contains much information saying what his policy would be, without outlining the specific plans to implement them to achieve his policy goals and objectives should he become president in 2024. There's a dearth of data showing Mr. Ramaswamy's experience in foreign affairs, including his broader strategic positions on geopolitical matters. He has, however, stated his foreign policy goals and objectives as a series of assertions, but does not provide deep analysis, supporting research, or specific plans on exactly how he would achieve his policy assertions should he be elected President of the United States. He has said, however, that foreign policy, quote, is all about prioritization, close quote, and that good use of the U.S. military is, quote, protecting American soil and American interests, not a pointless war somewhere else, close quote. Mr. Ramaswamy argues that the United States should use the military to directly take on Mexican drug cartels and, quote, end the fentanyl epidemic in this country, close quote. Again, how he would accomplish this is not clear. Ramaswamy is pro-Israel, but he favors a reduction in U.S. aid over the years, arguing that he would negotiate more Israeli-Arab bilateral agreements, rendering U.S. aid unnecessary by 2028. Again, it is not clear how he would accomplish this objective during his presidency. Mr. Ramaswamy says, quote, we will defend Taiwan until we achieve semiconductor independence. I expect that to happen by the end of my first term, by 2028, close quote. He calls for putting guns, quote, in every Taiwanese household, close quote, in order to deter China from invading. Mr. Ramaswamy argues that America needs a total decoupling from China. He describes the Chinese government as, quote, great existential threat, and argues China now represents a more significant threat to the sovereignty of the United States of America than the Soviet Union did during the Cold War, since this, quote, economic codependent relationship, close quote, is developing a hostile government. On the issue of the Russo-Ukrainian war, Mr. Ramaswamy proposes to end the Russian invasion of Ukraine by conceding Russia's current occupied territories. To renew economic relations with these countries, Russia would be required to return to start and end its alliance with China, which he labels as the greater threat. Ramaswamy says he will cut support for Ukraine and block attempts at Ukraine NATO membership. How Mr. Ramaswamy intends to accomplish these objectives as president is not clear. Ramaswamy has spoken extensively on foreign relations with Australia, a major ally of the United States. Ramaswamy has encouraged Australia to play a stronger role in competing with China and defending Taiwan, as well as pledging to overcome obstacles to the delivery of U.S. nuclear submarines to Australia. Mr. Ramaswamy's plan to address the growing national debt appears to be primarily focused on reductions in the size of the federal workforce and zero-based budgeting by government agencies. Again, there is a dearth of information on authentication, however, showing that Mr. Ramaswamy has developed any specific plan to reduce the national debt and to outline the very specific things that he would do as president and exactly how he would accomplish them, other than his focus on government employee layoffs, 75% of the total federal workforce, and the dismantling of several government agencies to save money, along with zero-based budgeting for government agencies should he be elected president in 2024. Again, no specific plans on how he would accomplish these objectives. Authentication found a dearth of credible data indicating that Mr. Ramaswamy has developed any strategic plan to reduce the costs of national health care and the specific actions he would take to implement such a plan if he were elected president in 2024. We did, however, find instances where he has provided assertions about what his policy positions would be on healthcare. He has said America has a, quote, broken healthcare system, close quote. According to Mr. Ramaswamy, quote, we need to start having diverse insurance options in a competitive marketplace that cover actual health care, such as preventive medicine, diet, exercise, lifestyle, and otherwise, close quote. But authentication did not find any detailed plan. Ramaswamy has also said, quote, here's how we deliver that. End the antitrust exemptions for the health insurance companies. That's where the competitive marketplace begins, close quote. Previously, Ramaswamy has emphasized faith-based treatments for mental health over medication. According to Ramaswamy and his post on X, quote, stop pushing artificial pharmaceutical treatments and rely instead on faith-based approaches that restore purpose to people's lives, close quote. He's also been vocal about removing, quote, violent, psychiatrically deranged, close quote, people from communities and pushed for involuntary commitments to mental health facilities. In similar fashion, it does not appear that Mr. Ramaswamy has any written plan containing the specific steps he would take to maintain the long-term solvency of the Social Security system. Authentication found no credible sources relating to the existence of any written strategic plan based on research that could be further analyzed to determine its credibility. Authentication did find, however, that Mr. Ramaswamy has said that the United States can grow its way out of the insolvency problem by boosting real gross domestic product, or GDP, growth to between a 3 and 5% level per year. Independent studies, however, contradict this position. Authentication found no strategic plan on the betterment of education other than a proposal to abolish the Department of Education, tying education-based performance metrics to funding, implementing his anti-woke policies, and requiring civics education. However, authentication found no credible sources where Mr. Ramaswamy has written a national policy plan with specifics on increasing things like national test scores, moving forward on more effective STEM literacy, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, addressing parental concerns on the teaching of critical race theory and other national concerns regarding the quality of education in America. Mr. Ramaswamy is also silent on taxation policy, except to adopt a 12% across-the-board tax on all types of income. Authentication, again, could find no evidence of a detailed plan describing the credibility of the research supporting the policy or how Mr. Ramaswamy, as president, would accomplish its implementation. Mr. Ramaswamy has said, quote, the climate change agenda is a hoax, close quote. On energy, he says nuclear energy expansion would be his policy, calling it the best form of carbon-free energy production known to mankind. He has also been a strong supporter of the use of fossil fuels. Authentication found a dearth of evidence that Mr. Ramaswamy, however, has developed any plan, and again, the specific actions based on good scientific research that he must accomplish to achieve the goal of any significant nuclear expansion and the reduction of the use of fossil fuels within the next 2 decades. On the issue of preserving the environment, Mr. Ramaswamy opposes efforts to fight climate change, wants to burn more coal, and says fossil fuels are essential for human flourishing. There's a dearth of information on any specific plan to address climate change and its damage to the environment, and the respective roles of fossil fuel versus renewable energy sources to abate the climate change problem. Mr. Ramaswamy is against a federal abortion plan, but he does support a 6-week abortion ban at the state level. Ramaswamy has described himself as pro-life and wants to expand post-birth policies that support mothers and fathers and to end federal funding to Planned Parenthood. He has pledged to complete or significantly add to the border security wall and use the military to augment border security efforts. Mr. Ramaswamy also called for reinstating the Remain in Mexico anti-asylum policy to deter immigrants from crossing the border. Ramaswamy notes that doing so would serve as an inducement for the Mexican government to control its own borders. Authentication found that there is a dearth of information on Mr. Ramaswamy's plans to reform the judicial system. Authentication did find, however, that Mr. Ramaswamy is a strong supporter of law enforcement by virtue of his strong opposition to the defund the police movement. Ramaswamy has said he has seen a correlation between a national identity crisis and the rise in violent crime. Mr. Ramaswamy contends the issue can be remedied with, quote, faith-based approaches, close quote, and police, quote, who aren't afraid to be sued for doing their jobs, close quote. There was, however, a dearth of strategic documentation laying out the specific problems and actions that he believes are required to reform the larger justice system in America. On the issue of racism, authentication found a mixed bag. There is much credible evidence that Mr. Ramaswamy believes in the equality of all Americans, but authentication also found evidence that Mr. Ramaswamy has been accused of acting to exploit for political gain, in this case, running for the President of the United States, the black, white, brown divide in America. So on the plus side, authentication found that Mr. Ramaswamy has no mental health impairment, and he is young and healthy enough to serve out 2 terms as President of the United States. He is a man of God, he is very well educated, and a successful businessman. He is a strong supporter of law enforcement. His policy positions on security at the southern border and on abortion are clear. On the downside, however, Mr. Ramaswamy has little to no national security experience. Mr. Ramaswamy has little, if any, foreign policy experience. He has no well-researched and articulated plans to address the exponential growth in the national debt. He has no written national plans to address the rising costs of health care, maintain the solvency of the social security system, other than to rely on the growth of the GDP. Mr. Ramaswamy has no detailed plan on how to resolve the serious ailments of the U.S. educational system. He is largely silent on the issue of taxes, only to propose an across-the-board 12% tax on all sources of income with no written research and plan how he will accomplish this. if and when he should become President of the United States. Mr. Ramaswamy has no comprehensive list of judicial reform requirements or how he will address them if and when he is sworn in as President of the United States. Mr. Ramaswamy's position on racism is a mixed bag. It is only fair to say that over the next several months, as the presidential campaign continues, it is likely that Mr. Ramaswamy will develop more detailed strategies and plans to share with the American people on these issues. It is what it is. We want to thank you for watching the Objective News Network. Next time, we will take a look at another candidate running for president in 2024. In the meantime, please tell your family, friends, colleagues, and followers about us. Thanks again for watching, and please subscribe